Some of you might know that I have family who live in Minneapolis. My brother is the director of the School of Music at the University of Minnesota. His wife lives there as a musician and artist. They have foster dogs that they bring into their home. I also have friends who live all over Minnesota. I have friends who live in Rochester and in Hackensack and in Duluth. And I have colleagues who live in even more places in Minnesota. You have friends and neighbors in the United Church of Christ all over that state. And all over Maine, and all over Ohio, and all over really every state in the Union. And so I hear reports from the ground in Minnesota. Yes, of course, I keep an eye on the cable news and on my doom scroll device, but I also keep in touch with people, and I hear about what they see in the streets where they live. And I hear about why they are afraid, why they are nervous, why they are worried. And I hear about why they are hopeful. I get to see some of why they are hopeful. Because one of the amazing things that I have seen happening in Minnesota, and especially in Minneapolis and St. Paul and the surrounding area, but all over Minnesota, is people coming together to do things that they did not think that they could do, that they were not sure that they could do. If you go out into the streets, you will find places where there are just hats and mittens and gloves and hand warmers for folks who are out. If you go out into the streets, you will find places where there are just whistles and noisemakers for when you are out. And if you are stuck at home, afraid to go to school or to church or to work, there are folks who will take care of you, who will get your grocery list and go out and shop and drop stuff off at your door. There are people who will go to the pharmacy. There are people who will stop by some random store for a thing that you need and bring it to you, because what we are seeing is neighbors taking care of each other, and what we are seeing is a bunch of people who thought, I will never have to do this, and I don't know how to do this, and I'm not sure I can do this, stepping out to do this. This has been surprising to some folks who don't understand how stuff works in the Midwest. How we have these stories about the farmer down the road who couldn't harvest his crop one year, so all of the other farmers came together to help. How we have stories about the family who needed 10,000 casseroles delivered, and so a community got together and delivered 20,000 casseroles. How when it comes down to it, we care about our neighbors. We will do work for our neighbors. We will do things for our neighbors, and our neighbor we know, is anyone who is in need. This has surprised some folks so much that on one of the doom scroll apps, somebody wrote, as a former Special Forces warrant officer with multiple rotations running counterinsurgency ops, both hunting insurgents and trying to separate them from sympathetic populations, I've seen organized resistance up close. From Anbar to Helmand, the pattern is familiar: spotters, cutouts, dead drops, or modern equivalents, disciplined comms, role specialization, and a willingness to absorb casualties while bleeding the stronger force slowly. What's unfolding in Minneapolis right now isn't protest, it's low-level insurgency infrastructure built by people who clearly studied the playbook. The playbook in question. People have looked at what is happening with neighbors being neighbors to each other and decided to call it an insurgency. Decided that it involved supply lines and coordination beyond what they could imagine. And somebody replied to this with what I think may be the best social media reply I've ever seen. Show them an email thread of church members planning a funeral lunch, and it would blow their freaking minds. There is something powerful to being a church. There is something powerful to being a community. There is something powerful to knowing who our neighbors are and knowing that our neighbors are everyone in need and knowing that we have each other to lean on. And that is that we can do, by the grace of God, amazing things to care for each other. We've spent this season talking about burnout. That feeling we get when we are just all dried up, when we are all shriveled up, when we have no more left to give and we don't know what to do, and we find ourselves in the zombie state of just going along, just trying to keep afloat, just ending up curled up on the floor, wondering what we're doing and why we're doing it. And we started with this theory of burnout, that burnout comes when our have-tos, or at least the things that we think we have to, overwhelm our want-tos. When we're going through life doing all the things that we have to do, doing all the things we're supposed to do, doing all the things that we have been told we have to do, and we suddenly don't have any time or energy or space or bandwidth for the stuff that we actually like to do. And then we moved on to talk about the things that consume us and the things that feed us. There are have-tos that we actually have to do, and there are have-tos that we only think we have to do and that we can let go of. There are have-tos that consume us, and there are sometimes want-tos that consume us, that eat us up, that turn us to ash. But there are also things that feed us. And the things that feed us are almost always in that want-to category, and the things that feed us are almost always coming from the God who is love, who feeds us, who provides manna in the wilderness, who provides bread and drink at a table for disciples, who makes sure that we have enough and more than enough. And then we talked about mission. This idea that God calls us, each and every one of us, to a purpose. To a purpose that might be different for each of us, but leads to the same place. That nurtures God's reign of love all around us, that makes the world anew, that helps us participate in God's redeeming work for all of creation. And how, when we follow that mission, when we meet that purpose, when we go for that call, we find ourselves being fed, even if it is hard. Even if it is difficult, even if it leads the way down a path where it looks like there is a cross at the end, where it looks like there is a tomb at the end, but where we can have faith that there is a resurrection beyond what we can see. And I will tell you that I've heard the stories of folks in Minneapolis who did not think they could, who went out and did and found themselves in the cold, and it is cold, in the danger in the exhaustion, in the fear, being fed. And who could go and rest for a while and couldn't wait to get out again. But there's another piece to the being burnt out. There's another piece that hits us all, and it's that piece that is, I want to do this. Doing this feeds me. I am following God's call, but I can't do it all. I can't make it happen. I've tried and it's not working. I've spent hours on it and nothing is coming. I don't have the skill. I don't have the gifts. I don't have what I need to do this thing. And it is too hard. And it is too much. And even as I am being fed, I am starving. This is something that affects a lot of pastors. I'm going to get personal for a moment and vulnerable for a moment. There is a lot of weight on the shoulders of pastors who are constantly trying to put together a church, to have the worship services and the music and the programming and the Bible studies and the youth stuff and everything that we can bring together to have an amazing, amazing, wonderful church, the biggest church in town, the biggest church in the state, the church that everyone looks at and says, I want to be a part of that. There is a lot of weight on pastors' shoulders, and none of us can actually do it. Because it's too much for a person to do. And where pastors get burnt out is when we keep taking stuff on, trying to do it. I have a colleague in one of the many UCC pastors' Facebook groups who actually asked this question a few weeks ago. He posted it on a Sunday afternoon, I think. And the question was, if the pastor also plays the organ for a service, should the pastor get the guest musician pay? And the answer from everyone in the group was, what are you doing playing the organ for the service? You have enough to do, but he was trying to bring everybody everything that they wanted, and he didn't have an organist, and he happens to play. So he just did it. And now he was wondering, how is this going to work? And I know I'm talking about pastors, but this applies to each and every one of us. I know this congregation. I know your abilities to take stuff on. I know that you can do the one more thing. And I know that doing the one more thing gets tiring. I know that doing the one more thing gets exhausting. And I know that some folks, probably some folks who are here today, and definitely some folks who are not here today, who I hope are watching the live stream or who will watch the recording later or will hear from one of you, I know there are folks who have taken on so many one more things that they've had to drop all of the things and find a way to rest. In our reading today, Paul is writing to the church in Corinth. And it's a little hard to figure out what all of the problems that church is having are. He's kind of all over the place, going from topic to topic, but it seems like there are some folks who think, I get to do everything. I am in charge, I have all the power, I have all the authority, I get to do it all and decide how it is done. And I'm willing to bet that some of those folks are folks who have said, nobody else is doing this, so I guess I'll do it. And I'll make it work. And we will be the church that Christ is calling us to be. And Paul writes to them and says, that's not how it works. The superpower of a church, the superpower of a community does not lie in the one person who does all the stuff. The superpower of the church, the superpower of a community lies in the fact that there are a bunch of you and you have different gifts. And when those gifts come together, amazing things happen. So bring your gifts. Know which ones you have and which ones you don't have. And let the folks who have the gifts you do not have play their part. Because it is when everybody has their place, it is when everybody has their thing, it is when everybody has their job, it is when everybody shares their gifts, that something amazing rises up, that a church, that a community becomes more than the sum of its parts, becomes more than pieces of a body, and becomes a living body of Christ that can go and meet the call that is placed on it. Because yes, God does call for a lot. It is big work. But if we all do our part, it will get done. And we are, again, seeing this in Minneapolis. Yes, it is the observers and the protesters who make the news, but the work that is happening could not happen if people were not gathering hats and mittens and hand warmers and leaving them out. If people 1,000 miles away were not 3D printing whistles and mailing them to folks who would get them together and put them out. If there were not people who would go to the grocery or the hardware store or the pharmacy or wherever for the folks who could not get out. It works. It works because everybody has found a place. Everybody has found a job. Everybody has found a gift and is sharing it, and the church works the same way. I dare say what is happening there is church. When we come together with our gifts, whatever they may be, we together can nurture God's reign of love all around us. And when we are on our own, we get burnt out and broken and turn to ash because it is too much. So let us be together. Let us work together. And let us invite other folks to come work with us. Because I am telling you the call to which we are called. To be that community of extravagant welcome, that place where no matter who you are and no matter where you are on life's journey, you are welcome and we are glad that you are here. That place where anyone can come before God without fear, without shame. Just to be loved by the God who is love. That is a call worth pursuing, no matter what it may ask. And we can only pursue it together. A rabbi I know, in talking about all of this sort of stuff, said there is plenty of deck, just get your hands on some. I assure you there is plenty of deck. Get your hands on stuff, on some, and you will find yourself being fed. You will find yourself being brought back to life. You will find yourself on fire for the God who is love.